everyone, and welcome to the Quilt Show. The block of the month for 2019 is about to be revealed, and it is right on target. Plus, bullseye quilts with the ever-famous Becky Goldsmith. Up next. Ow! Sorry, Jim. Oh my gosh. I'm glad the quilts are on target because I'm not. It's a new day for quilting with your co-hosts on the Quilt Show, Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms.
I'm so excited. Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2019.
Ringing in the new year, and you know what that means on TQS. We're going to get you started on the block of the month, and you will love it.
I'm so excited, and our block of the month designer is here with us today to get us started. Please welcome back to the Quilt Show, Becky Goldsmith.
Hey, Becky. Hello. Well, thank you for coming, and I am so excited. When we asked you, you were like, yeah, and then you were all over it like in 5 minutes.
I was.
And knew what you were going to do.
I did.
That is great, which is something new for you, right?
It is. I am mostly known for hand applique and handwork in general, and I was a little tired of it and had moved on to doing some foundation paper piecing. And I knew where I wanted to go from there.
I mean, literally 5 minutes, she knew.
Absolutely. So I don't think we need to keep the secret any longer. Let's just get right to the BOM for 2019, and here it is, everybody. Ta-da!
You can't make blocks like that. That's not what you do.
I know, but it is what I do. I had spent nearly a year before this working on circular foundation paper piecing. And that took me to a certain point, and I knew I wanted to go farther, and this was it. I wanted to break it down into smaller blocks, each one being different.
And the name of the quilt is?
Sizzle.
Now, what was really exciting is when we saw this, I mean, Becky you are A-OK in our book. When we saw this, we thought, oh, but what if somebody likes to live in the cool colors of the world?
Yes.
And would you be open to at least doing on a computer, right?
A rendering.
Yeah, and you said, I'll make it.
I will, because honestly, the warm colorway is not where I live. It was a challenge to me.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, I would have made the cool version first, but I wanted to challenge myself.
So sizzle the orange and red. Now let's look at the cool blues and greens.
Version is, yeah, that one actually came more naturally to me. And I had fun making them both. They both made me very happy.
That's great.
And I want to say that the first one was machine quilted by Angela Walters.
Yes, it was.
The warm one. And then you machine quilted the cool one?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And the difference between them as far as the quilting goes, I mean, it's obvious when you look at it, but I knew Angela would more heavily quilt and put more different things in it. And that's not really what I do so well. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be nice to also show a different way to do it.
Well, it looks beautiful. I mean, looking at it on the screen, it's just stunning.
Right.
I think both work.
Well, and the funny thing is when Lilo and I saw the warm one, we're like, we want to do that one, we want to do that one, and then you see the cool one, you go, ooh.
Maybe you'll do both.
I don't know. Yeah, I did.
Maybe you'll do both.
I did both. I was happy doing both.
That's great.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. Was this the one that started the journey?
Bullseye is what started the journey, and it is a book that has recently come out. It's a reproduction of an antique quilt that I fell in love with when I was a very new quilter, nearly 30 years ago. I saw it in a book of antique quilts. And one day, 2 or 3 years ago, I woke up and I realized how you could put it together. I have no idea how they made it in the late 1800s. No idea. But I figured it out.
You know, one of the things I love about that is because there's a connection there with me is that I get a lot of inspiration from antique quilts. So what is old is new again, and then we find a way to make it fresh, and that is wonderful.
Yeah.
So the next quilt is more what I think most people would think Becky Goldsmith.
Yeah, that's Tile Tango, and that is one of the quilts that was in my book on color. And it is what I am going back to now. I've spent 2 or 3 years doing a lot of foundation paper piecing and machine work in general, and I'm now going back more to handwork.
Now, are you still known as Piece of Cake with Linda Jenkins? Where's all that at?
Linda retired a few years ago, and so currently I'm the whole cake.
Okay.
I'm the whole cake, but every now and then, Linda and I do still talk, and she does still sew, and every now and then we do things together.
Awesome, awesome.
Great.
Okay, this next one, there's 9 bullseyes in it.
Yeah, because when I was making the first bullseye quilt, I realized that you didn't have to make the whole quilt. You could stop at any ring. So this is one where I stopped. I think those are, gosh, I'd have to rethink it. 16-inch blocks, 20-inch blocks maybe. You know, I need a ruler.
Yeah.
But I stopped there, and I thought it made a very nice quilt on its own with the repeating
It's
blocks.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Okay, so now we're coming over the table. You know, this is not you, okay?
No.
This is not you.
No, this was, you know, rarely do I make a quilt that someone asks me to make, but my daughter-in-law who lives in New York, she can make me do things that no one else can make me do. She asked for a unicorn quilt, and she asked in July, and she wanted it for Christmas. And by Christmas, I had made not just this size, but the bigger size, and written the book and submitted it. So this is a pattern.
Was she happy with it?
She loves them.
Yeah, I love it. It's really
loves them. It's
whimsical.
machine applique. It's really very easy.
Well, you know, one of the things that I enjoy about you is that it's not a one-trick pony type of thing.
No.
You do what you do. You have a passion. You have a vision. You see the vision come to reality, and I think it's fabulous.
And you love what you do.
I do.
Love
I
what
do.
you do.
Now, yeah, let's look at one more quilt, because it's back to the bullseye, but it's back to the whole thing of you can make it any size.
Yes,
so.
you can. So the pattern pack has, of course, the foundation paper patterns for each ring. And wherever you stop, you have to have the corner size for each one of those, and that's part of it. So,
But is this one a pattern?
yeah, well, I mean, it's all part of the
all
same
part of
pattern
the-
pack.
yeah.
So it's, you know, you got the blue one that goes all the way out to a 60-inch square. This one stops at 30, I think, by the time you, and then you've got the
So you've
flank piece.
included those pattern pieces for wherever you choose to stop.
That's it.
And
yeah.
you could even make the tiny little 12-inch or whatever
Yes.
in the middle and say that, call it a day.
And I've almost done that, but there's not enough time in the day to make every variation known to man.
And I want to say one thing that's, I think, very important about this year's BOM. Becky is an impeccable teacher. Her instructions are wonderful, and you've also provided videos.
Videos.
Do not do this without watching and reading, because you have a way to do it, and you make it simple. And when we come back, you're going to start with step 1, Ricky and you. Want
Yes.
to do that?
I
Yes,
can't
I
wait.
do.
All
Great.
right, we're excited. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to spend our day with Becky Goldsmith, our TQS 2019 BOM designer. I'm so excited.
I'm very excited.
And this is the block, the first one out of the gate, right?
Yes, it is.
All right, talk to us about it and show us the components.
All right. This block has 8 diamond shapes and 8 wedge shapes. All of the shapes are sewn onto foundation paper pieces.
Okay, and I'm looking at this constitutes
A
one
diamond.
diamond shape, but there's many pieces in that diamond
Yes, there
shape,
are.
right? And then this constitutes the wedge that you're talking about.
Yes, it does.
And really, that's all they have to do.
That's it.
Yeah, so, and you've got everything written and in detailed instructions.
And let me stress that even if people have already done foundation paper piecing and they know how to do it, it would be much better if they actually follow the instructions. it never hurts. And there's videos. I've made videos for every step of the way.
Yeah, so we're kind of giving you an overview today, but the videos that you'll watch, the extra videos are great. And also that really, you're trying to make it simple. And if they've tried another way in the past, fine, but at least try this first.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, so let's go to the pattern and show us what's on the first pattern.
On the first pattern, you have this page, and it's got the diamond shape and the wedge shape. You make 8 copies of this onto vellum.
Okay.
Yeah, now vellum comes in a package. C&T puts it out. And you run it through your printer. Inkjet
or laser.
Or
They both
laser.
work.
Yeah, actually laser's a little better.
Okay. Because?
Because when you run it through an inkjet printer, sometimes the ink can smear a little bit. You know what I found out? I took my vellum to a copy shop and ran it through their super duper fast.
Right.
I'll never go back to inkjet printing again. I'll just take it to
But
Kinko's.
most people will have inkjets.
And
so
it works.
if you
Works
do
like
it,
a
it's
charm.
just maybe just let it dry.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do 4 to 8 sheets at a time, which is all you need for this. You
Okay.
just need 8 sheets.
All right.
Okay, so you print it onto vellum. Now vellum is nice because it is crisp and you can see through it, which I find to be so helpful.
Well, it's going to help you here.
It does. Now, one way that people do foundation papers is that they don't trim away the excess paper. I think
They
that's
leave
bad.
the whole thing.
No, go ahead and take the time to trim it out on the dashed line because it helps you position the fabric better.
Okay, and I'm going to bring this in just to show you that what you've copied is this whole page, but that includes the seam allowance.
Oh yeah,
that
big
dashed
time.
line is what you're saying
And
is the
actually,
seam allowance.
okay, this is really subtle, and I might forget to say it later, but you know, with foundation papers, you'd sew 1 and then 2 and then 3 and 4 and 5 and etc. The dashed line is always the seam allowance line. Do you notice that the dashes are shorter here, and then they get a little bigger and a little bigger?
My gosh.
So it's a really subtle but important visual cue as you're sewing, and that's true on all of the patterns.
Okay, cool. So that as you go, the dashes get longer and you know you're in the right spot.
Yes.
Not only is there a number there to guide you, but you've got another clue.
But you've got another
Great.
clue. Yeah, I like those clues.
Yep.
Okay, so the patterns tell you how many rectangles of whatever size, of whatever fabric you're supposed to cut for each number in the diamond. Now, number 1 is longer, right? And you
Right.
can see through it. See how you can see through? So this piece of this fabric, which is right side down here, and that's in the instructions.
Yep.
Right side down covers the whole diamond.
I see that, and you've got it aligned on that
And I've got
dashed
it
line.
aligned because that's where the 1/4 inch seam allowance is.
Okay.
Now, I want to sew the number 2 fabric so that when it opens up, that space is covered, the
Yeah,
number 2
because I see
diamond.
this diamond is not only coming up here, but the seam allowance, it makes it all the way up
all
here.
the way up there, which is why the number 1 fabric goes longer, because on the flip side, you want to shift the number 2 fabric up because
And that's why you've got this, that's why you've got the measurement for this yellow one already done. And I know from talking to Becky, you said, I've planned this out for you so you're not wasting any fabric.
No.
You're not gonna end up with, oops, I don't have enough. If you do it the way you have lined it out.
plus it's just easier than trying to work off of a strip and guessing where
Sure.
you are. Now, what I always do, even though I drew it and I know what I'm doing, I always, when I position a shape, double check
To make sure it's covering what
To
it's
make
supposed
sure
to
it's
cover.
covering what
and
it's
that's
supposed to
even
cover.
before it's sewn. In this case, it's already sewn, but you're gonna flip it over to make sure.
Yeah, you can run a little pin here, you can hold it with your fingers, you can, just sort of look and make sure it covers number 2, make sure you're looking
Okay,
at number
the 2
2.
fabrics are right sides together, but this is the side you sew on.
Yes, you always, 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 always sew on the solid line. If you find yourself sewing on the dashed line, you'll be really, really, really sorry.
Okay, now what's the deal about the dots?
The dots, you have to back stitch at the dot because here, if you sew beyond the dot, it's a problem when you're ready to sew the next thing
Because
on.
you've gone into the seam allowance.
So again, I learned by doing, right? When I designed this, I thought, well, I better put myself a little mark there so I know to back stitch.
Okay.
So any place on any of the patterns that there's a circled place, you back stitch.
Okay.
All right.
So that one's been stitched.
That one's been stitched.
All right.
Then you take it to an iron and you press it open. And you notice this is a little,
It goes wonky.
who cares? We're
Yeah,
going to cut
but it's
that
in the
off.
seam allowance. It's not going to show.
Yeah, we're going to cut that off. So I pressed it this way, and then I'm going to turn it over. Now, read your numbers,
number
right?
3,
Yeah,
right?
you want to
Number 3.
cut for number 3.
Now I saw how you just turned that. You're looking at the numbers. I mean, this is something I'm trying to watch
Oh,
your
yeah,
brain
yeah.
at work. You saw 1, 2, 3, and you turned it
Because-
like this, as if this is going to go through the machine on this line, is that right?
Well, I've got to trim.
Are you sewing this way, or you're going to trim?
I got to trim off.
It's the trimming part that you're headed
yeah,
to.
you don't want all that junk underneath.
All right, okay.
Because 1/4-inch seam allowances are important. And a lot of times when people foundation paper piece, they just let what's not showing be any old which way. That drives me out of my mind.
So, cut it out.
So you want a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Now you have choices. I live on the edge, and I'm careful. I'm very careful. So what I use is some kind of cardstock. This is a bookmark, and I position my bookmark just shy of the dashed line, because when you fold
it over, there's enough.
Yeah, you fold it over, and then I'm gonna cut. Boom, I'm gonna cut.
Well, do it. Can you do it?
I can, but let me show one other thing, because not everybody is comfortable doing this.
Okay.
Right? Some people, they don't wanna. What they would rather do is fold this back on the sewing line and then use a ruler to measure over 1/4 inch.
Okay.
I don't care what you do.
As long as you trim it.
I'm just too lazy to pick up the ruler. And sometimes if you're gonna live on the edge and do this, sometimes you do cut the paper. You know, you'll nick it. Just use cellophane tape, Scotch tape.
Sure.
Fix it. All right, so then you cut and try to be careful not to.
I love it when the audience is holding their breath.
I know. Well, me too. Well, okay, notice where the fingertips are.
Yes,
do
I
not
do.
put your fingertips over there.
Yeah.
That's all bad.
And you went slow. You went slow to do that.
I did.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then you do that, and then boom, you're ready to position number 3. You always sew your fabric right sides together.
Right.
Nothing's different here. So I want to position this.
And I'm looking at this end coming just barely past the seam allowance and letting the tail be the extra up there.
Yeah, well, and the reason you need this longer here, if you flip it over and look, is because you don't want to cut that off too short.
Absolutely.
You gotta, this is actually really basic sewing. A beginner can do this if they follow the instructions.
Well, no, I agree. I agree, as a matter of fact, because people either love or hate paper piecing, but I say it needs to be in the wheelhouse because there's some things that's just the best thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
And you're making it easy for us.
Well, I can't imagine any other way to do this without headaches.
Sure,
This is
absolutely.
just the easiest way to do it.
And so again, on this one, you'd backstitch at the dot, and sew to the end, and just continue.
Yeah, and here, it depends on how you like to start. You can either put your needle down and backstitch to there, or you can put it in this way and sew to it and backstitch.
Either way.
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Let's go to the wedge.
Okay, so diamonds, you just follow your nose, all right? The wedge is different because number 1 is in the center.
Right, we're not working our way out.
You're not working your way over.
Center.
And the reason I did it that way is because to start with 2, it was too small. It just seemed wrong. So with this, I put 1 and 2 right sides together and positioned them underneath and sewed all the way across. If the solid line goes all the way across the paper, you sew on the line. You just follow that. To get 3 and 4, you press this open. Now, notice, I'm not trimming away the excess fabric yet, what sticks out. There's no reason to do it now.
Sure.
All right, and then you position, okay, where did my little, oh, here we go. Okay, so you would take this, and again, number 3, fold it over.
And trim off.
Trim off, and I've got this one ready.
So there it is trimmed.
There it is trimmed. Ooh, there's
And back to right sides together, always right sides
always
together.
right sides together. And the instructions give you enough length without overdoing it, but enough so that there's a little bit of
and I'm
movability.
looking at that. So, I mean, yes, you've given yourself a little 1/4 inch past the paper on each side.
Yeah.
And because this is going to get narrower and narrower and narrower, you're good to go.
Absolutely. So you would do this, flip it open, and do the other side same way. Now, one little thing, and I forgot to mention this earlier. When you get to the place when you're getting ready to trim away the excess fabric, right? When you flip that blue one open, it's going to want to move, right?
It shifts.
So I take a little bit of the glue stick,
just to hold it in
hit the paper
place.
and put that down. So anytime you've got wiggly fabric, so even here, if I needed to, if I felt like I needed to hold it in place,
tack it down.
A little bit of glue stick, put it there. done.
Good idea. Good tip.
Well, I just remembered.
Accuracy is important, right?
Yeah, it is.
All right, now we're down to joining the diamond to the wedge.
Yes, because now, I've already trimmed away the excess fabric, and I do that, you know, with the shapes right side down, and here I do use a ruler.
Okay.
You know, I place the ruler over and measure over 1/4 of an inch from the solid line, which always matches up with the dashed line, but still, I use the ruler just because it's faster.
Sure, I
Right,
would, because
right.
it needs to be nice and
And
straight.
then you can't use it there, but there you go. So,
So do you use scissors or do you just rotary cut
I
very
rotary
carefully?
cut
I
because
would too.
I'm lazy.
Okay.
Scissors are, but if you're nervous,
Yeah.
use scissors.
Yeah, use scissors.
Okay, so what I've done here already is use positioning pins to match this with almost that on the back side. And this goes off the other edge. So positioning pin, swing these around till they match, pin it, sew it, back stitch at the dot.
Right.
Now,
The paper's still in there.
paper's still in there, but before you go forward, anytime you're ready to press and move on, always take the paper out of the
So
seam
you have a trick
allowance.
for that. Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay, so I love these tools.
These are the Appliquicks.
And you have to figure out what works for you. What works for me is to try and get in here, and if I can't do it with my fingers, I'll use the Appliquick tool and pop that, and then I bend it. And then sometimes you have to pick it up, sometimes you don't. If you're really lucky, it tears great.
Well, let's talk about stitch length.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead and tear that, but what is the
Okay.
stitch length that you're using?
1.7 to 1.8.
Okay.
Now, that's important, and you know why. I'm
Well,
going to tell you why.
all right, yeah.
Okay, because the paper takes up space in the stitch. So when you, no matter how short your stitch is, here, this is, I love these tools. Take that out. When you take the paper off, and remember it's paper on both sides now,
Right.
that adds room in the seam allowance. And if your
stitch is too big, it just lets it
stitch
gets
is
it too
too
loose.
big, it's way
It gets
too
it
loose on the front side, yeah. So here, I just flipped that over
All right,
without
so
saying
Becky,
so.
let's come down.
Okay.
You're going to join these two together. So you've
Yes.
created
I make 8 of those.
8 of these. And then you're going to join these two together with this seam
And that one.
and that seam so that you've got 4 of these.
Exactly.
And then how do you assemble the final
Oh,
piece?
okay. Well, you sew together, you make 2, right? I mean, you've got
it'll
a
be 4 and 4.
diamond and a wedge, diamond and a wedge. So you got 4 of those.
Right?
Then you take, let's see here, where are we? We're
Is that here?
Yeah, diamond to wedge, diamond to wedge. That would be one pair.
One.
You sew pairs together,
To get the top half.
and then the bottom half, and then you sew this way. Because if you just add them like this, setting in that last one would be no thanks.
But am I correct in saying the last seam starts here, comes in, goes all the way across,
and then here.
and then zags?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's the same thing each time because you're just here to here, back stitch. And we're going to show them this, right?
It's going to be, no, we're going to go to break.
Oh, darn
That's
it.
where we're headed, is we're
Okay.
going to break.
Okay.
Because really, all of this is being shown on your videos online, and the instructions don't avoid those at all, okay? So when we come back, we're going to learn how to set this circle. It's going to be a winner chicken dinner when we set that circle into the
Absolutely.
hole, right? Okay, we'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. Becky, I have to tell you, in watching Ricky's segment with you, thank you for those tips because some of that stuff I didn't know.
I'm so excited.
And it really
I love
is
it.
doable if you follow the instructions. Okay.
Absolutely.
So during break, you sewed this together, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So this is what you've got.
Yes.
Then what?
Then what? Okay, then you take off the little fuzzy bit.
Sure.
Then, theoretically, the paper is still attached, but like magic, I took a lot of the paper out, but left some to show you how you take the paper out. You know, I said that every time you sew a piece together and go to press it, you remove the paper from the seam allowances top and bottom.
See, I didn't know that.
Makes it so much easier to press. It's easier to deal with. It's less distortion. But when it's time to take the rest of the paper out, you want to be careful not to pull it too much. And here, you know what? I love these little
I do too. I love that they're flat on the end.
Yeah, they pull. Okay, so I took that. Then I reach in and see how much easier that is to take off because you don't have to fight what's in the seam allowances.
See, and I would be inclined not to take it out until it's set in because I'd be concerned about the stretch on the edge.
It's too hard to set in the circle with it in. So you get the idea.
I get the point.
You pull it, you take it out. I'm going to take that one out. Okay.
And be gentle. I mean, they are biases.
Well, they are.
But
and
not
I'm
that bad.
pretty gentle, but in the interior where it's mostly sewn together, you can be a
little rougher.
Yeah, but don't
be cuckoo.
Yeah, don't do that thing where sometimes you see people who are, please don't do that. Okay, it's harsh. Okay, next, it's important to refer to the instructions because I've done this wrong, right? There's points all along here. You need to look at the drawing to know which one points up.
Okay.
And I have to look at the quilt to know which one points up because when you set
to get the colors in the right place.
On. Yeah. Now, you'll notice too, if you look at the quilt, and I have to look at the quilt.
That's okay.
The center block has 4 gold things, right? The corners have 3 reds and an orange.
Right.
Sides have 2 oranges and 2 reds. The main thing is to make sure you set it in with the correct thing pointing up, and the green one points up. Yes, the green one points up. All right, so.
We love seeing this, by the way.
Well, you know, I would do this even if I had said 5 minutes ago.
Right.
Because I do. All right. You'll notice that I've sewn the 4 corners together, right? So you can't put on one corner and then the next corner and then the next corner.
So make your big O.
You make your big O. And I've already, once I sewed them together, I've folded these in half, put in a little crease, marked the diagonal with a pin.
Yeah.
Now, people are so nervous about set-in circles, and you don't have to be.
Okay.
Put the block on the bottom, put the circle around it right side up. Let's see, this one's close to me. I'll do this.
Okay.
So I want this seam to match that point.
Here, let's show everybody. You want this seam
to match
exactly that. All right?
All right, so you fold that in right side.
Can I just turn you this way a little bit so this camera can get it?
I could have worked on that side.
This is fine.
Okay, so I'm doing that. I've got this. By now, you should be able to sort of eyeball that 1/4 of an inch. And if you can't, you can get close enough.
Well, there are rulers, too.
Well, there are rulers, but seriously, you know, you can lose a lot of sleep. But, you know, so you get it lined up and put in a pin. Not right in that, but very close to it. You pin.
Okay.
And then you move to the diagonal. You've already got a pin here, and you've marked the line. Well, I've got a pin. I'm going to take this. I'm going to match that up with that point. Boom.
So basically, you pin all the points first.
You pin the 2 sides and the diagonals.
Okay.
All the way around.
Oh, okay. So say that again, because I said something incorrect.
All right. So I get sides, side seams, and then you get the diagonal. I would move to the next one of these.
Okay.
Pin that, and then I would move to the next diagonal, pin that.
Gotcha.
And then pretty soon, all of these are turned to the inside. And if you notice, when you bring these points in, they line up right there.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Oh,
and
wow.
if you bring this in, it should line up pretty much that way, right?
Okay.
So you do that. And we don't need to watch me pin the whole thing, right? Then, to pin in between, all you have to do, trust your cutting. Again, it's important to be accurate when you use the template to cut out. And there is a template for these. We didn't say that.
Okay.
There's a template and the instructions to make the template for the corners.
Okay.
You put it on, you cut them out. It's easy.
Right.
But when you bring this in, don't stretch it, don't overwork it. pin flat. I'm not just pinning flat because of the cameras and where we are. I'm pinning flat because it's the best way to do it.
And then probably doesn't stretch, right?
Doesn't stretch.
So don't do it on your lap.
And no. And this curve is on the bias. It will give just enough so that you're good there. Where the concave curve meets the convex curve, where the block meets the interior of the corner, the part that lines up is on the 1/4-inch seam allowance. So anything to this side of it, there's going to be a lot. Anything to that side of it is going to stretch just the tiniest little bit. So what you want to pay attention to is making sure that where the 1/4-inch seam is, that meets perfectly.
Okay.
So I would go around and I put in as many pins as I need to put in.
This is not horrible at
No,
all.
it's really not.
Easy. This is great.
So you do the whole thing, and you always pin with this part up, with the inner curve pin. So
yeah.
at the sewing machine, you use your 1/4-inch foot, pin flat, and the motion I use in the machine is one where if the needle is here and the edge of the foot is here, I make sure that I'm measuring in and I bring the block around like that, rather than trying to pull it to be straight going in.
Yes.
Because it's a curve.
Yes.
It's never going to be straight.
Yes.
So.
And boy, this is where you'd be really happy if your machine is set into a surface.
I can't imagine sewing any other way.
Right.
I really can't.
Right.
So every block has this, and this is a really easy curve to meet.
That's great.
Simple. All right. The harder ones, there are 3 blocks that have little tiny circles.
Well, let's take a look at this block on the finished quilt. I was amazed. I said, "Will you applique that?" And you go, "No, you sew it." She said, I can do it if I want, but this is easier to do it this way. This is genius, people. This is absolutely genius.
Well, and the reason, there was a reason why I couldn't bring this in, and it's in the drawing. It's too hard to get the points to do, right? Because
this is brilliant.
Trust me on this, it's too hard. Now, when you're putting it together, and I should point out that there are videos that go with almost every block. And the key thing with this block, which is different from the block number 1, is that when you're sewing the partial diamond to the wedge, you want to be sure that you have a red one and a green one and a red one and a green one. Because if you just randomly pick them up, you'll do what I did the first time, which was sew red ones and green ones, and then you go, uh-oh, darn it, I have to rip that out, and which I
doubt
did.
that what you really said, but that's okay.
You know me too well.
I know me too well.
So I've cut off some of them, but when you construct this, there are these little dog ear things. You can cut them off with scissors if you're really careful, or you can do what I do, which is cut it off with a rotary cutter and live on the edge.
What do we do without rotary cutters?
I don't even know. Okay, now, this matches, the way I did it, you can match it green to green. And you have to pay attention to that now. Or you could do it this way if you wanted a different look. If I was making it again, I might do it that way, but I didn't do it. So, same drill as before. You put the small circle underneath, right side up, get it lined up, red to red, green to green. And because you have a point going to a seam allowance, you don't have to press in the center to find, the center of the diagonals. So here, and we're all straight, I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to use a pin, and I'm going to match. I'm going to put it through that. And I'm going to put it, now you'll notice the paper is still in the bottom circle.
Okay.
This is the one place where you do that.
Because?
Because if you take that out, the bottom circle is too loosey-goosey.
Okay.
Right, so you leave the paper in. And the only thing that makes this harder is that it's smaller.
It's smaller, yeah.
That's it. Beyond that, it is exactly the same.
And again, pin it on a hard surface.
Pin it on a hard surface. Well, this one, you have to pick up.
Oh, really? Okay.
And look, I just took out the important pin.
Listen to her. Don't listen to me, okay?
Well, and you'll know, because try pinning this on a flat surface. You can't do it. So I took out the wrong pin. I'm going to take out the positioning pin. You could go opposite side and come back to it, but I think it's easier to do it this way. I'm going to match that to that.
Have you ever considered gluing? Because I know a lot of people are into gluing.
I don't,
on this sort of thing.
I don't think glue would hold this.
Okay.
And I don't think, you know what? On the other one, I think I wouldn't use glue because on the underneath piece, it would, you know, you got to rub it and it might fray a little bit.
Okay, right.
And on the
right.
outer part, it'd stretch it. So
Okay,
no,
no.
I probably wouldn't. I mean, I have changed over the years.
Well, I'm going to say this too. I always talk about having nice, expensive pins, and then in this case, you want nice, expensive pins.
Yeah, you do.
And I don't think I can say a brand, just the ones that make you at the cash register. Okay?
Yeah. Now, so you'll see those who make this. Yeah, so you just futz with it, and eventually you have this out here in a big wad, and you've got this all pinned down, and each one in between, I'll pull it out and I'll throw in a pin there.
And you sew it from this side up, so you can see.
You always
Okay.
sew with the I have to stop and think. Caves go in.
Well, where you see the little X's too, so you can see that.
Yeah, and you just, you know, hold your mouth right, think calm thoughts, and yeah, I would throw in a pin there. And the other thing you want to do when you're sewing this, I like the tools.
Right.
So if I need to, when this is in the machine, I'll pull that over just a little bit and hold it flat. And I would do the same thing here. And if I'm having, you know, you just hold your mouth right. And
You
do
could
that.
also drop another pin in if you wanted, right?
Oh, yeah. Or you'll use the little tweezers and pull that baby over and then hold it down. You don't have to go very far, and it's so much faster than trying to hand out.
I want to look at that center again, please. Let's take a look at that, because this is truly, I mean, when we were setting up for this demo, it was like, no, no. And like, oh, there it is. There it is. What do you guys think? Yes? Yeah. Thanks. A+. Okay. I love this. Again, thank you for the monthly videos that you're going to provide. You are a very thorough teachers, and your instructions are fantastic.
Thank you.
And what we always tell you is make sure you print everything out by the end of the year, because then the copyright or whatever goes back to Becky. So you snooze, you lose, all right? Well, coming up, we're going to go on with Bullseye Quilts, the whole thing that got this started, right? And Becky's going to give us tips that are going to keep us right on target. Stick around. On the next Quilt Show, calling all beginners or any quilter who wants to improve on the basics.
Marcy Baker shows you why you should give a rip about pressing and seam ripping.
I'm going to pull the stitch into the blade.
Plus, she has a wonderful one-patch project to help build your skills and confidence.
And then there's a phenomenal quilt from 1873. It made a long journey from India all the way to our studios.
It has a great story, and you won't want to miss that on the next Quilt Show.
Back, everyone. Becky, the first two segments that you taught us were from the BOM.
Yes.
But all of that was really inspired by the Bullseye quilt, which you had such a passion for. Tell us a little bit about that quilt.
All right. When I was a new quilter, and that would have been more than 30 years ago, I found a book of antique quilts, and there was a picture of a bullseye quilt in it. And I held on to that photograph for years. And one day, about 3 years ago, it was like it came to me in the night how to put it together.
And this is the quilt that you've done, which we showed earlier, but this is where we're headed to now in this segment.
Yes.
All right?
Yes, and that was in my head, and I had just finished all of the quilts related to the bullseye when we started the block.
Well, we're really excited because the bullseye ultimately led to the BOM.
Exactly.
But now we're going back to the bullseye.
We're doing the bullseye. Okay, so what I brought to show you is the way you can do the Y seams. There's really two ways. You can do it the slower, possibly more accurate way, maybe, or you can do it the faster way that's pretty darn accurate.
Okay, I like the pretty darn accurate
Pretty
as
darn
well.
accurate, and 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So
Now, you, of course, the pattern comes,
pattern starts
right?
there. You copy it onto vellum. You cut your shapes out. There's a trick to that. When you've got multiple pages on vellum, if you are careful, 3 to 4 sheets, match them up, staple them, you can cut those shapes out.
Would you
the
staple
time.
in lots of areas so
Lots
that
and
you can
lots.
cut them out
In
at the
fact,
same
you can
time?
kind of see the staple holes
Okay,
there
cool.
that I did that.
That's
Okay.
a cool tip because that's
Well,
going to save you time.
It does. Okay, so you cut them out, you piece them.
In the order like we've been
In the order,
learning.
just the way you do it. Okay, you get those made. You place 2 together.
Right sides together. Now
Right
there's a
sides to-
wonkiness going on there because there's a
Because
it's
there's a
leg
Y
kinda
seam,
going
yeah,
out there,
because these don't match, right?
Right.
All right, so I used a positioning pin here, swung it around, matched it to there, sewed to that point, and backstitched. Now, if you do that, this is the more accurate way.
and a tad slower.
And a tad slower because you would backstitch, take them
it
out of the machine, and then you swing this around just like that. And you want to make sure that this doesn't pull right or left, that it stays lined up.
And does the paper break or does it?
Oh, I forgot to say that part. Thank you. You have to break the paper.
So you have to tear
You
it.
have to tear, like here, before you go any farther, you have to tear the paper.
Okay.
Because otherwise it won't give.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me that. All right, so you bring this around, you match the edges, pin, and then the important part is you want to crease that flat.
Okay.
And then you can put this in your machine and you've got choices. You can, like here, let me
yeah, let's just use a pin.
Let's
will
use a
work.
pin. And you can pin from the outside in, you can pin from the inside out, whatever makes you happy. So when you've got this pinned, you could put it in the machine, sew to that and backstitch. Or,
Now that's interesting because that puts the seam allowance on the left side if you did that.
who even cares?
Oh, I mean, I don't care.
I don't
just,
care.
For a lot of people, that would be like,
Well,
wow, that's kind of rocking the boat a little bit.
But that's the greatest part about foundation papers. You're sewing on the line.
It doesn't matter
The
where
line does
okay.
the work. And besides, did you know you can kind of see the 1/4 inch on the other side of the foot too? Depending
Oh,
on
no,
the
yeah,
machine.
yeah. But
Depending
yeah,
on the machine.
absolutely.
Okay, so anyway, you can do that. Now, remember I said there's an easy way.
Okay,
Or
an
a-
easy that's close to good enough.
Easier that's close to good enough. Okay, I'm gonna make that one be not creased. So you would sew to here, right?
Same way. So far it's the
Instead of-
same.
So far it's the same. Instead of back stitching, let's pretend like that's the needle.
Okay.
And your needle's down, presser foot is up, you still bring this around, you look at that, and you want to reach underneath and make that be flat. Needle's still there.
Right.
Drop the presser foot, boom, sew
And
to
then
the
sew
end.
without picking up the needle.
Yeah.
Yay for needle down.
Yay
right?
for needle down, yeah.
Yay for needle down.
So, and you just have to see which works for you, right?
And this
That's
is the
what it
result.
looks like,
you have,
yeah.
You have twosies.
Twosies, and you would take the paper out, right? The paper in the seam allowances.
Oh, yeah.
Always take
okay.
the paper out, then press it. If you don't take the paper out, you can't press it flat.
Okay.
All right, so you do 2s, and then you do 4s, and then you do 8s.
Right.
And then you do
And you have 2
16s.
halves in this case. Now,
In this
I assume
case.
that as the bullseye gets bigger, you suddenly go from 8 to, I don't know, 24 to 30. So it just gets
16,
bigger
yeah,
as it just goes.
I think the biggest rings have 64 pieces.
But you're still doing twosies and then foursies
Twosies.
and then eightsies and so forth,
Yeah,
right?
because if you do 2 and then 3 and then 4, it's unmanageable, it stretches too much, it's
Okay.
all bad.
That's great news.
All bad. Okay, so
Well, this relates now to what you showed Alex. You've got to put the circle into the middle, and the pinning is what you showed before.
Exactly.
But I saw that you already had one of them pinned.
I do.
And I'm the one that said, hey, can you do that on camera?
Yes, I can.
And she said, yes, I can, with trepidation. So here we go.
All right.
We've already done about 2/3 of this guy, or maybe even 3/4.
all right, here we go. So I've
Oh, look
got,
at, sorry, Jim. Jim, wow, no arrow in your head
Hello,
now. It's all
Jim.
taken care of.
All right, so I've gotten it started and I'm following the edge of the 1/4 inch foot. One thing that you'll notice is you've got this to mess with, right?
A lot of bulk.
A lot of bulk. You just move it out
But
of
it's
the
out
way
of
as
the
you
way,
go.
really.
Yeah. And I have to use the Appliquick rods, whichever end makes you happy, because there's fatter ends and forked ends and flat ends.
Sure.
I like the pointy end. I never
Well, it's tedious right there, so that pointy end is really good.
Yeah, and you move slow. I mean, this is faster than doing it by hand, but it is not speed sewing. And you notice I'm keeping the end of the tool pretty close to the needle.
Sure.
To control the fabric as it goes in there. Just be careful not to sew into it. And I have broken too many needles, so.
Now, I'm just guessing where you've pinned is pretty good. It's between the pins is where you're trying to make sure that you're pulling that fabric out towards the edge.
Exactly.
So it is aligned.
Yes, I don't want to flatten out the circle. And so I'm coming around, holding my mouth right, and I'm trusting that I have pinned correctly.
Absolutely.
Gotta
Now, if
trust
you were
the
in my
pins.
class, you'd be a student with their tongue sticking out and they're biting on it.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that either, at least not on camera, right?
All right, now I'm going to go to there and overstitch it. And if you are motivated, you can backstitch it.
Yeah, are you to dud there? Are you at the end?
I'm done.
Oh.
It took longer than that.
Well, now we get to look at it.
Now we get to look. Okay, so I'm going to use the little magic button and pull this up.
Becky, where did you get your confidence?
One of my very early things when I was a beginning quilter, I taught at a quilt shop, and I was a beginning quilter, and I was the only worker bee, and it turned out I was the only teacher. And the woman who owned the quilt shop, Marilee, she wanted me to make all the shop models. And it was back in the day, it was an Amish book that had pictures but no instructions. And she'd say, make that. And she started at the beginning of the book, and I had to calculate everything and do it and then teach it. And the last thing I made for this shop was this massive sampler of stars, and everyone was different.
Wow.
And I had to figure it out.
Well, yeah, and that not only taught you to be a great quilter, but it taught you how to write books and make patterns,
Exactly.
right?
It's excellent. I mean, think it through. I like for people to. Okay.
Hey, Alex.
I gotta see
yeah,
this.
so here we are. We're going to
Okay.
do the. Are you holding your breath out there, everyone?
I'm holding
'Cause,
mine.
See, I actually had her tell that story so we would have a little.
Okay, so you take this
Oh
now.
my gosh.
Oh yeah. Oh,
But
that's
look
pretty
at
good.
that.
Well, it's pretty good.
No,
now,
it is great.
Well, it's been pinned for a while now. Okay, I mean, because it's
Yeah.
it will lay flatter when the paper comes
That's
out.
right.
Okay.
When you press to the inside, right? And you would press to the path of least resistance. You press to the inside.
And what do you think, everybody? I'm pretty excited.
I have a talking stick question.
You have a talking
Yes,
stick
I have a
question.
talking stick question. You are using my pins because you did a carry-on coming
Yes.
here. I understand you use a specific brand that you adore.
I like the perfect pins for a lot of things. Karen K. Buckley's
Okay.
perfect
Okay.
pins. They are very fine and very flexible, so there's a learning curve to using them. But once you learn it,
They're fab?
Yeah, I like them. I don't, I use them a lot of the time.
Okay, okay.
So wait.
Okay.
So if you got a little pucker somewhere.
If I did.
And honestly, I don't think you did.
Yeah, well, I might have.
yeah,
Well,
it's
no,
gotta
that'll
press-
press
that's
out.
pressing out.
If I did, I'd go in and I would unsew just a tiniest little bit, and I'd smooth it out, and I
And
would
go
sew
back
it
and
again.
redo
Sew
it again.
Yeah, it's not that big a
But
deal.
you didn't have to on this one because that's
No.
an A triple plus right there.
Cool.
Exciting.
Okay, so this is pretty cool, you guys. It's everything you need to be able to do this, right?
Yes.
Any size, it's all in here.
It is, because you can stop at any ring.
Okay.
It's the coolest thing. You can make 12-inch
Becky,
blocks.
there you go.
You can make
Yeah.
bigger, you can make bigger.
That's
you
by
can make it any
C&T
size.
Publishing, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Beautiful. I'm kind
Thank
of
you.
very intrigued about this, to tell you the truth.
I think you need to make at least one.
Oh, I agree.
So Becky,
Yes.
Becky, thank you for all the hard work prior to today and everything for our BOM for 2019. Let's hear it for Becky.
Bow to you.
Yeah. And thank you for all the work that you will do throughout the year, keeping Pinot people on track and so forth, and answering questions and so forth.
And then Barbara Black is going to have your back and shepherd people through too. So we've got your back. Please join us, and it's going to be a very fun 2019.
And not only is it going to be a fun 2019, it's going to be a new day every day. Absolutely.